Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Karen Chang, Professor of Visual Communication Design at the University of Washington, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the 2020 UW Design Pecha Kucha Night. Tonight marks the 10th anniversary of this annual event. We held our first event in 2011. For those of you not familiar with the Pecha Kucha format, each speaker has 20 slides that automatically forward every 20 seconds, resulting in quick presentations that last for 6 minutes and 40 seconds. This format was designed by a Tokyo design firm to prevent death by PowerPoint. The 20-second forwarding prevents speakers from droning on endlessly over a single slide. The goal of our event is for students to build relationships with each other by sharing their design experiences. The experiences you will hear about tonight include design internships, design freelance or contract work, and design passion projects. We have 16 speakers tonight and a total of 14 presentations. The presentations will run until about 7:15 p.m. Please join me in welcoming our speakers by posting a positive message in the YouTube chat.
Hi everyone! Last summer, Philbert, Sabrina, and I were product design interns at Intuit for 12 weeks. Intuit's product is a financial software with financial, accounting, and tax preparation features and related services for small businesses, accountants, and individuals. Specifically, we are working on the QuickBooks product, which is a tool geared towards small and medium-sized businesses to help them manage their finances, payments, and employee payroll. We're going to talk a little bit about our experiences working as interns at Intuit. We'll begin by going over how we got our internships, a few of our projects, and the dynamics of corporate work.
So last year, Intuit came to UW to recruit. Intuit has a really good relationship with UW Design, so they come back often looking for interns and full-time hires. The process for interviewing and receiving an offer from Intuit is unique in how streamlined it is. The whole process only took about 2 weeks. For our year, Intuit created an RSVP event on Handshake for an info session that would be happening in the beginning of February. They asked interested students to send their portfolios for portfolio reviews that would be happening after the info session. During that session, we got to hear from senior designers and past UW Design interns who are now full-time. We got to learn a little bit more about QuickBooks, their values, and what design means at Intuit. The day after the info session, Intuit held portfolio reviews with selected students. These were 20 to 30-minute sessions where they asked us to show our favorite project in our portfolio and our role in the project. At the time, Ruby and I were in interface design working on a timer app, and we both thought this would be a good project to show, specifically since it highlights our UI/UX design skills. The next day, we heard back from Intuit letting us know that we were invited back for the final interview that will take place the following Tuesday. Before the interview, we were asked to complete one of 2 design challenges, and we were able to choose between our prompts. Both design challenges were focused on designing an end-to-end user experience with specific stakeholders and customer problems in mind. The deliverables were wireframes or sketches of our proposed solutions. They want to see our design process and craft. On the brief, it said that we should spend 3 to 5 hours on the project, but in reality, we spent at least triple that time. Reflecting on the process of the design challenge, we think it's important to showcase your strengths, whether it be visuals, creating a design system, or storytelling. This is your opportunity to show what you do best. For the final interview, they asked us to prepare a presentation introducing ourselves, why we were interested in Intuit, a few projects in our portfolio, and our solution to the design challenge. This deck is meant to tell a story of who you are as a designer. They want to see and understand your design thinking and how you approach complex problems. It's not just about walking them through the process, but they specifically want to see those moments of tension and friction and how you responded to them. It's also very compelling to show and not just tell. Both Ruby and I brought in our physical prototypes from the Design Methods project, which helped make our design thinking tangible. We didn't just show the final finished product, but we also showed our low-fidelity prototypes as well as physical copies of our ideation sketches. This highlighted our iterative development and immersed the interviewers with a first-hand look into our design process. For the final portion of the interview, we were asked a series of behavioral questions. These questions asked us to use past examples to reveal how might we respond to challenges. One good methodology to answering these questions is the STAR technique, where you address the situation, task, action, and results in your example. After our interview, we anxiously awaited for the call from Eric, our recruiter. 2 days later, we got an email from Eric asking us if we were free to chat. He called us, congratulated us on the success of our interviews, and extended the internship offer.
Part of the offer was that we would have an apartment in San Jose, and we were all really excited to be able to work and explore a new city and meet interns from schools around the States. But once COVID hit in spring, we were a bit nervous seeing internships being dropped left and right. April the 6th, Intuit let us know that their internship and co-op program would be fully virtual. Eric, our recruiter, got in contact with us and asked what we were interested in working on, both in terms of the product as well as the type of work. We then met with our managers before our start dates, and they let us know the team we would be working with and an overview of our summer's projects. This year, Intuit had 2 different arrangements for their interns. Some were put into an intern pod, like Sabrina, Alvin, and I, while others were placed into an existing team as the only intern, like Filbert. The intern pods were actually something new this year that Intuit was trying out. These groups consisted of a designer, a product manager, and some software engineers. The triads were meant to give us a sense of what it's like to work cross-functionally to ship a working product. While our managers were there to oversee our work, they weren't necessarily hands-on. It was really up to us to drive the momentum of the project. What was really great about working with other interns was understanding the cross-functional roles. I learned how to communicate to other people who might not know the language of design, as well as recognize and appreciate the perspectives of my PM and PD peers. From this, my own designs are more informed of the constraints and possibilities for creating a real market product. Personally, the most difficult aspect was working with the software engineers, since they didn't really appreciate the importance of design. I had to learn to be forthright and step up to ensure design had a seat at the table, and to make sure they were executing the screens at the fidelity in which they were designed.
So for me, my experience was a bit different from Ruby and Sabrina in that I was the only intern on my team, which is often the more traditional structure for internships. My immediate team consisted of 8 designers ranging from interaction, visual, and content, and while we were all working on different projects, we would come together a few times a week to check in and support each other. This was more of a first-hand experience of what it was like to be a full-time employee. I was surrounded with designers, but also had to work closely with cross-functional partners. I particularly worked closely with one PM, and in this experience, I learned about the business drivers and incentives that inform the design of a product. I also had the opportunity to attend many of the leadership team reviews, where we evaluated how the designs would track toward business goals. Something that was unique to me was that a lot of the intern pods had a clearly defined scope in terms of what they would be completing by the end of their summer, whereas I did not, nor did I have the support of other interns. My peers were all full-time employees that were right in the middle of their projects. My manager mentioned that I would be hopping aboard a moving train and would have to orient myself as quickly as possible. But luckily, everyone on my team offered the resources and assistance I needed to succeed. I also felt that they didn't treat me as an intern. They readily asked for my feedback and were open to my suggestions. My work was directly linked to these full-time employees' projects, and we all had a codependent relationship and relied on each other in order to complete work and move forward.
Similarly to Ruby, I also worked in an intern pod this summer. My team was a part of QuickBooks Cash, Intuit's bank account for small businesses. Over the summer, we worked on 2 projects. The first one focused on fleshing out an existing experience to replace your debit card, but I'll be focusing on our second project, implementing a debit card delivery tracker. For this project, we were aiming to keep customers engaged while waiting for their debit card. There's a long delivery time that Intuit had no ability to change, and since our product is so new, a lot of people didn't understand what the bank account even was. After understanding more about the challenge we were up against, I began ideating on the best ways to keep customers informed on the status of their card and excited to receive it when it finally arrived. We went through a lot of iterations, reviews with stakeholders and managers, and pushback from engineers, but ultimately we shipped a standalone tracking screen and various widgets on iOS, Android, and web. The widgets that you see on the left surface based on different delivery statuses and appear in various locations as access points to the standalone information page that you see on the right. This page that you see gave customers one unified location they could always come to for their tracking status and to learn more about the benefits and advantages of the debit card and the bank account. And now for some final thoughts, we'll be talking about some of our biggest takeaways from the summer. Personally, I learned that professional designers aren't that scary. At first, I wasn't sure how to act with the design team that I was a part of. I was intimidated by the fact that they had all been in the industry for a while, and I had a lot of hesitations about bringing my full self to work in this remote environment. But I learned to not hold back, and I was able to lean on pretty much everyone on my team. We had a lot of talks about everything from feeling lost after graduation, to disliking big tech, to racial justice, to our shared love of superhero shows, to farmers markets, and beyond. I was really lucky to have such a close-knit design team, and I learned far more than design from all of them.
Also, product design isn't really what we thought it would be. A lot of it isn't just design work. A lot of the time is spent trying to get buy-in, getting the right connections, and looking at business goals. We thought product work would be more meaningful because it's reaching thousands or even millions of people, but during these 12 weeks, even though Intuit places such an emphasis on customer obsession, at the end of the day, the customers were boiled down to numbers and metrics. We couldn't feel the impact we were having on our customer, which is such a contrast compared to the work Filbert and I were doing as TAs in Marks and Symbols the spring before. During that time, it was so enriching for us to see the progress that the students were making. We found more meaning working directly and intimately with a small group versus being a cog in a machine that is corporate America. Also, if you want something, ask for it. By advocating for yourself, you create your own opportunities. During our internship, when both Filbert and I felt that we weren't getting what we wanted, we talked to our managers and they helped us pivot into the trajectory that we wanted to go. People will support you and want to help you succeed, but you have to be vocal about what you want. And finally, do what you love. This one's for the juniors. You might feel that there's a lot of pressure on you to conform or land one of these yuppie internships, but what will really make you happy in the long run is being passionate about what you do. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sienna. I am a senior studying interaction design, and I will be sharing about my summer research experience. A huge part of how I fell into doing this research was by reworking my summer plan. Initially, I expected to spend most of the summer completing my internship, but due to COVID, those plans quickly changed, and I found myself with a lot of time to relax. There were definitely a lot of feelings of uncertainty here, as I'm sure many others experienced. I felt pretty lost about what I wanted to do this summer. But on the other hand, it gave me a lot of time to reflect. So I asked myself what I wanted to do with my time, what skills I wanted to develop, and how I could possibly do that. This led me to decide to do research this summer with Elena Agapi, who was previously at UW getting her PhD in the HCDE department. She's now at UCI teaching in the informatics department, but while at UW, Elena led a directed research group that I was a part of for 2 quarters. The research I did this summer was actually an extension of this. This research was for the Alacrity Center, and it was focused on designing to support therapists and clients in problem-solving therapy. This was really exciting for me because I had been looking for an opportunity where I could learn how to research and design for mental health. For anyone interested in DRGs, they're under the HCDE department, and they post listings each quarter of research groups that are looking for student participation for credit, so you can go on there and scroll through to see if any topics speak out to you. On the right is part of my application to the DRG, where I made a quick storyboard and also sent in my resume, portfolio, and a few written answers. The main way that I got this opportunity this summer is by reaching out. Personally, I've struggled a lot in the past with asking for help and sending emails, but learning to do this has been really beneficial for me. I reached out to Elena after the DRG had ended, thanking her for my experience and expressing my interest in continuing if she needed any help over the summer. And I was extremely lucky that she did and was willing to let me work with her. The overall process of my research experience was definitely different from school in that I didn't start at the beginning as we normally do in class projects. I came in after Elena had already conducted research interviews with the previous DRG, So what we focused on was getting familiar with the data, synthesis, and a little bit of ideation. We started by reading interview transcripts and coding quotes into Deduce, and then these organized quotes helped me to work with Elena to make journey maps of individual client experiences as I went through the different steps of the therapy process. As a group, we also used the quotes to create affinity diagrams. For the summer, we picked up where the DRG had left off, but if you really zoom in, you'll see that there's more synthesis and ideation involved. We had a lot more time to work compared to the 10 weeks that we usually have for class projects, so there was room to really iterate on everything that we were doing. Another difference that I saw throughout this process is that we were working with a lot more data than I was previously used to. Because of this, we made several different frameworks to understand the data. Personally, I really enjoyed this step and being able to go in depth and really practice creating themes, insights, and organizing them. Over the summer, our work was structured around live work sessions via Zoom where we worked together and talked through data for a chunk of hours at a time, and we would focus on extracting insights and organizing them. We also did work asynchronously and would use our meeting time to share what we did and talk through that work. I did find the synthesis to be challenging, especially with mental health being a very complex topic. There were different aspects of identifying usability issues, so things that are specific to the therapy process itself, versus aspects of mental health that we were observing that had nothing to do with the therapy process. There was also the balance of understanding what quotes were saying and trying to capture that accurately within our insights. I did, however, really like the formatting that we did this summer because I was able to learn a lot more from Elena with just the two of us working. And she would explain a lot about why she was going about writing an insight a certain way or why she was organizing something in a certain way. The second half of our research was ideation to bring back to clients and therapists, and we approached this in two ways. One, we would ideate potential responses, so things that we could bring back to the clients and therapists and see if they would find them useful, what aspects they liked or didn't like. And the second was ideation on activities and visuals to extract more information on any topics or areas that we thought we could use more knowledge in. I'm still continuing this research, so Elena and I are working on iterating on those ideations so that they can be brought back to clients and therapists. To reflect on my overall experience, I thought of a few takeaways that I could share. For one, reach out and use your resources. The reason that I was able to do this research was because I had asked Audrey sophomore year after doing a mental health project in class if she could connect me to anyone that was doing mental health research. And through that, Audrey connected me to Ellen Bajorling in the HCDE department, who then referred me to DRGs. Second, working with people outside of the major if you can is really fun. I was able to work with undergraduate, graduate, and PhD students from HCDE, build connections there, and learn how they work through the design process. By doing this, I learned and gained experience data coding, for example, for the first time, and using new programs such as Deduce. The main takeaway I wanted to share is that there's often a lot of stress and pressure surrounding getting an internship and following this one path. But sometimes your plan is different or things might change. And what I want to highlight is that you're still able to use it. For example, I've leveraged my research experience within interviews and apply what I've learned to the field studies class that I'm in right now. So whatever experience you gain is still an experience, and you can definitely take that, learn from it, and apply it. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name's Ian. I'm an industrial design student at UW and a past intern at Total Mount. And today I'm going to talk about kind of my unusual path to finding an internship and also how to find opportunity through failure. So to start off with my timeline, as a junior I took Design 301 and was applying to a lot of internships throughout the entire year. I even had the fantastic opportunity to go down to the Adidas Creator Lab in Portland and work on a project for a day with some of the designers there. However, as the summer rolled around, I still had no job offer and was kind of down on myself, or internship offer for that matter. I ended up pouring my design creativity into a passion project this summer, where I was trying to do some automotive design because that's something I've really been passionate about and want to pursue in the future, and I felt like I had the time and skills to kind of start with that. In August, I also had a short contract work with Mission Accessories where we designed something for Amazon, and they then recommended me to an 100-hour internship at Total Mount, which then turned into a later job offer. As we move forward, I want to talk about this idea that success is not final and failure is not fatal. As I said, I was kind of down on myself when I started out not having an internship this summer, and really just had to continue to push forward and know that there might be other opportunities that arise. So just always keep that in the back of your mind when you have something that doesn't work out for you in design and life. So for this summer project, I got really inspired by this man called Frank Stephenson, who's a designer at McLaren, and he does talks, TED Talks, and on his YouTube channel. And I got inspired to redesign a car called the Ford Escort, and I thought it would be really interesting to try and like design it for kind of like what the future might look like. And so I did a bunch of sketches and was really trying to build my toolkit, because I think the toolkit, your design toolkit is like your sketching, all the skills that you have. And I was really not a great sketcher and not a great automotive sketcher for that matter. So I really had to spend time trying to perfect that skill and get better at it. I also spent a lot of time in Rhino trying to figure out how automotive designers actually model different cars. I was also working on this idea of once I had the car established, I really wanted to render it out and make some really cool images for my portfolio, and also a short video with my friend. We did a lot of audio mixing, and I learned how to use that skill as well as Premiere, which was something I was not super familiar at the time. This was very rewarding because I was able to see something that I was really passionate about making in the first place come to life. So moving on to the intern process, what does that involve for myself at least? So in March of 2020, as a junior, I had a really short 1 week sketching project with this company called Everlabs. And then all the way move forward to August 2020, I had a short 2 week contract with Mission Accessories. Turns out that all these companies are kind of associated, and I got recommended a Total Mount to start an internship there and then later a job offer. So what are the products that Total Mount is actually involved with? Well, we do a lot of electronic mounts for Xboxes, PS4s, and Switches, and a lot of Apple products, and some of our mounts are actually in the Apple Store. During my internship there, I worked on 3 main projects which are still in development and will be on the Amazon store in a couple months. So there's 2 main different types of projects that I worked on at Total Mount. The first were redesign mounts, which is basically making a sub-market of something that we were already offering. So maybe instead of the universal consumer, it would be more of like a gamer or something like that. So trying to target a smaller market, whereas new market products would be something that we aren't actually offering before, maybe for a new electronic device, and that would require a lot more research, testing with the actual device, and a longer timeline of development with the engineers. So what does the design process actually look like at Total Mount? To start off, we'll do a lot of research and market studies to figure out an area where a new product might actually be successful. During this time, I'll be doing a lot of sketching and ideating to figure out possible directions, and then bring those back to the team during weekly reviews. Once we've established a final direction, I'll go into CAD and work along with the engineers to figure out how to prep this idea and product for manufacturing. So understanding the market. This is always something that I really strive to try and do on every project at Total Mount because I want to become an expert within the field. So for example, if I'm working on a headphone mount, I want to know everything about every headphone and how it might work with the product that I'm making. It just makes the whole process a lot more fun and easy to get into. Additionally, understanding the cost of the products, because we're trying to be competitive. At the end of the day, we're trying to be profitable. And so understanding the limitations to your design and the changes you might need to make at the beginning is a lot of help. Bringing this idea to reality. So once I had an idea in the back of my mind, I would be sketching it out and working with my boss for figuring out the engineering aspects of it, and then also just falling in love with the CAD and testing your ideas. I was fortunate enough to have a 3D printer where I was able to make some of the projects and test out little prototypes, which is super exciting. So considering manufacturing was one of the new things that I wasn't really familiar with going into this internship, and it was really new because we hadn't really talked about it on a massive scale before at UW, and it's really been so I would have an idea, and then I'd have to go to the engineers and talk about the material, the cost, the mold design, the marketing, and the time that it takes to actually manufacture these products, because we're on very short timelines to hit launches of new products, and so that was a really big thing and a great learning curve for me as well. So the difference between a studio and a startup, for me at least, the UW studio, working in classes, you have that process and collaboration, which is essential for any kind of job. However, for the startup, some of the new things that I gained was that things are really cost driven in the real world and for mass manufacturing, and really have to design things so that they can be made quickly and economically at the same time. Now, going on to the family atmosphere, that was a really high point of this whole job was really working in like a small environment of only 4 or 5 people and bringing the ideas to reality as well. As with any job, there are going to be a few things that you don't like. For myself, it was the real big aspect of remote design of not being able to work face to face and being collaborative, which I think is one of the most rewarding aspects of being a designer in the first place. Nonetheless, I am very grateful for this experience to work in the professional field this past summer. One of the things I want to say though is that, especially with this experience at the beginning of the summer of not having an internship lined up, is that nobody really knows what they're doing. We're all trying to figure it out and we're all trying to find the best opportunities for ourselves. So just go for it and give it your best shot in terms of the internship. And if it doesn't work out, find something that you're passionate about and pursue that. One last thing to keep in mind is to always stay positive, eager, and passionate. I feel that if you're always working hard in design and really finding things that you love about the field, the career will inevitably follow because people are eager to give you an opportunity. Thank you all, and have a great night.
Hey everyone, my name is Joe Jang. I'm a senior in visual communication design. That feels so weird to say out loud. And today I'm going to be talking about my remote summer internship at Lovevery, which is based in Boise, Idaho, but I was in the U District. And yeah, so today I'm going to get into how I got the internship itself, and just some reflections. So Lovevery offers products and information which help create developmental experiences for new babies and families. This takes form in both physical and digital products, but what you're seeing on the screen is part of the subscription-based play kits that Lovevery is known for. Yeah, so something I realized pretty early on in October of last year was that I was going to need to make a LinkedIn. And I was always someone that I was like, no, not LinkedIn, anything but that. But I'm not saying that you need to, but it's what worked for me. And I just realized that this was going to be the best way for me to follow up with people after like Karen's internship class and just look for opportunities. So yeah, force myself to get rid of the crying emoji over the eye. And something I do would be to like use the search function to try and connect with alum at places. And I felt like if I reached out to them, it would seem more genuine because we had this shared solidarity of surviving the program. um, Despite that, though, there were a lot of empty messages and even more no's for internships. So I started making this list on my notes app so I could just appreciate, how awesome I was doing and how many companies wanted me. But yeah, this started in October and kept going through spring quarter. And at that point, things felt pretty grim. I didn't think things were going to work out. I had a few interviews that didn't go well. Other people were landing internships. So yeah, I was like, ugh, what am I going to do? But I kept going on LinkedIn. And then eventually I saw this post by this guy named Lauren Morris, who would later become my boss. Ha ha ha, foreshadow. But I emailed him right away. And I got a response back from him, and we just set up like a 30-minute conversation and talk. And in that talk, just kind of wanted to get a sense of who I was, how I got into design, and just know that I kind of was able to like hold a conversation and have some of those interpersonal skills. So that went pretty well. And after that, we set up an hour-long in-depth on a project I did. So at the time, we were wrapping up interface and shout out Team Article, and I ended up presenting that project. And I definitely say for these portions of like the interview process, use a slide deck. And that I thought went pretty well. So I was going to meet with the director of digital products, and that was just like a 30-minute chat similar to the one that I had with Lauren originally. So after that review, which I thought went really well, Lauren and Alicia, who was the director of digital products, kept talking with each other, and then I was extended an offer. Yes, wow. So the first thing I did though was I go to my freaking notes app and on my phone, and I went to where Lovevery was written so I could write yes, so that I could screenshot it and use it in my Pecha Kucha for next fall in my presentation, which is now. So yeah, way to manifest, Joe. So I started the next week, and this is what you're seeing here is like a small part of the digital products team that included me and Lauren, who were the main UX designers, engineers, developers, project managers. there are about 120 or so people at the company as of now. But yeah, immediately I realized I was the youngest person and I felt really intimidated, and all that imposter syndrome goodness started to creep in. So this is an old screenshot of what the customer portal app looked like, which is mainly what I worked on, where people like could manage their subscriptions and everything. And something about startups is that they'll usually, like, once they outgrow things like Shopify, Recharge, and Stripe, they'll create their own system. And so this is just a sample screen of one of the flows I began redesigning. So within the subscription portal. So yeah, something I also did in addition to that was sort of restructure the design system within all web and mobile like applications. And so I was about to begin testing for like user research and testing, but Lauren had a baby a little bit earlier than expected, which is funny because like a baby at a baby company. And so he was on maternity leave for about a month or so, and that meant that I had to pivot projects. So at that time, Lovevery was preparing to launch their European store, which Lauren was going to be working on. But now that he was gone, I was the only designer, so I had to create the new European store. And this is kind of when my second wave of like, oh my god, like what am I doing here? Like I don't know what I'm doing. That sort of just set in. But this is a screenshot of the current U.S. product page store. One of the pages I was redesigning. And because it was a new European store, I had to consider a lot of what that meant in terms of diversifying the audience to like a European audience, and talk with stakeholders, business managers, engineers, stuff like that. And this is kind of one of the screens that I worked on for the product page now. So, but yeah, Lauren's back from his maternity leave. I'm actually still working at the company and about to conduct user research for customer portal, which is like that first portion that I had worked on previously. And yeah, that went so quick. Okay, I guess what I wanted to say though was that the void of success I thought an internship would fill wasn't filled at all. I don't know if like that chase for success ever ends, but I think I really wish with my whole college experience that I'd taken more time for myself and like kind of put less pressure on whatever I thought success meant. But yeah, we're young, even though I feel so old presenting this. And just know that you're on your own path. And I'm terrible at, that. Oh my God. Okay, I have 2 seconds, but please reach out. I'd love to keep talking. And yeah, feel free to hit me up anytime. I'm always here.
Hi, my name is Jenna McWhorter, and I'm an Interaction Design Senior. This past summer, I worked at Hulu as a product design intern, and since I love metaphors and puns, today I'm presenting All Aboard the Internship, a hopefully helpful tale of design adventure. And within this saga, I will share my experience finding an internship, working at Hulu, and my overall learnings. So in the fall of 2019, I began applying to internship positions on LinkedIn, as well as makeathons, workshops, and scholarships. My mentality was to try for every opportunity and see where it led. I also submitted 3 case studies in the fall. I was invited to the IDEO Collab Makeathon, which was a dream come true at the time, and I was hoping to get invited to their fellowship, but was instead waitlisted. So my first big excitement was also a really intense moment of uncertainty and self-doubt. And from October to January, I submitted over 50 applications. For the most part, all I heard back was crickets, and I was doing portfolio reviews from Karen's class, and there were good days, and there were also hard days, trying to navigate diverging feedback, and also just find my stylistic voice as a designer. In November and December, things brightened up when my other 2 case study submissions resulted in a trip to the Adidas headquarters for an intern workshop, and then a trip to New York to receive a fashion scholarship. Both of these experiences were super helpful in learning how to talk about the value of interaction design to a variety of potential employers, and were great additions to my resume. And then in the beginning of January, I basically still had no major leads and was trying to balance working on my portfolio with a heavy school workload. I went to an IXDA talk with Andrew from Hulu and really appreciated his authentic storytelling and view on design. I applied to Hulu's intern position through LinkedIn, and then the next few weeks turned out to be a whirlwind because recruiters from both Hulu and Adidas reached out for a phone interview. For each one, I talked through my design methods project, and I heard back from Hulu really quickly, and they wanted to schedule an on-site interview in 4 days. I put together 50 slides that discussed what my passions are as a maker and a skateboarder, a quick overview of my portfolio, and an in-depth walkthrough of one project. I chose a personal project that I felt showcased my design skills as well as my passion for maker culture. I showed the design, my process and stages, and overall learnings. I got my offer soon after and literally danced through my house. I was also asked to do a final interview at Adidas, Amazon, and a design case study for Google. And all of these opportunities were appealing to me in their own way, but at this point I felt like Hulu had an awesome culture and they really valued mentorship. And so it just felt right, and I signed the offer. The next few months turned out to be a roller coaster of emotions as our world changed. I'm so grateful that Hulu was in a position to adapt their program to an 8-week remote internship. At Hulu, I worked with 2 feature teams to design and prototype concepts for mobile and living room devices. There was one other product design intern, Tina, who was working from Texas, and we became good buddies. I spent 4 weeks with the watch team working on designing for the live TV guide on mobile devices. My goal was to help resolve some issues with category filtering while transitioning to Hulu's updated interface. The next 4 weeks I spent with the Discovery team working on an aspirational project about the future of content hubs for living room devices. And designing for TV screens was a totally unfamiliar space, and I loved the ambiguity of this project. Across both projects, I started with a brief and an understanding of the problem, doing a competitive analysis, sketches and ideation, wireframes and user flows, prototyping in Figma, and presented my work to my team for feedback. I can't show the whole projects here due to NDA, but the parts of the process that differ significantly from our projects in class was applying Hulu's design system library, user testing, and learning how to communicate ideas to stakeholders and developers. I met with my mentors to go over my work, get advice, and generally just check in on each other's quarantine sanity. An amazing thing about Hulu is that there's support everywhere. I never felt stranded, which was really crucial to my success. And the remote work and social environment across Zoom and Slack was actually really fun. Memes, GIFs, and messages were really cool and supportive to see. And Tina and I also had coffee talks with other hooligans spanning the design organizations, from researchers, product leads, and the VP of design. We also met once a week with intern pods and chatted about our struggles, triumphs, and random stuff like funny hat days. My teams also organized fun events to get to know each other, like work desk pick Sharon tells, and on the last day we presented to the design org, and our mentors hosted a glow stick goodbye party for me and Tina, which was really fun but also bittersweet. And so this experience overall taught me so much about how to apply my design skills outside of the classroom and how to be a helpful and enjoyable person to work with. I felt like I really grew as a designer, and a few of the biggest takeaways that contributed to that are to be humble and brave. I received so much feedback from people who appreciated my eagerness and willingness to listen and learn. I was really nervous for my interviews, but I tried to be my authentic self, and I think that shone through. Saying yes to every opportunity made me feel pretty vulnerable in a new space, but it gave me the chance to be brave and prove to myself that I am capable and prepared for working as a product designer. And when I think back at my connection to Hulu, part of it feels so kismet, and honestly, it also feels like a lot of luck, but I really believe that the harder I worked, the luckier I got. And for those looking to find an internship, just remember that you are awesome, you're totally capable, and let your passion shine through your work, and try for as many opportunities as you can. And finally, when the world pulls a fast one, try and pivot and keep going. My internship was reduced from 12 weeks to 8, and so with an extra month of free time, I started a print business and continued to work on my craft passions. So whatever happens, let the light shine in and you got this. If you have any questions about my experiences, please feel free to email me. I'm super happy to help anyone in their own design adventure. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Yuna. I'm currently a junior in the interaction design major. I'll be talking about my experience this past summer in a Procter & Gamble virtual design co-op. So in early February, I saw a listing on LinkedIn about this opportunity. I applied online with my resume. A few days later, I was sent an online cognitive test to complete. And in March, I hopped onto a video call with a few P&G designers for an interview. And at this point, you might be thinking like, girl, you were only a sophomore at that point. Like, what could you possibly talk about during that interview? But I had some past internships. The first one was being at a research institute where I helped them create an educational video series. So this really showed, my interest in storytelling and ability to really lead a project. I also emphasized to them the intense design process I was going through at that moment with the Design Methods project. And I was also a project lead for Design for America, which helped me answer the how do you work in a team? I also shared a little bit about my Fashion Scholarship Fund design and product development case study. It helped show them that, I can apply the design process in a more marketing and consumer context. So then I got the internship. I was assigned as an innovation design co-op in the Beauty Care Innovation Design Studio for hair care. So I wasn't necessarily working on Pantene and Head & Shoulders, but instead I was focused on the research and development, or R&D, for new-to-market hair care products. I soon realized how lucky I was to be in this innovation space at P&G because there's a lot of freedom and opportunity to approach things with a more creative agency vibe or direct-to-consumer mindset. You might not see the stuff you create go to market for a few years or ever, but the process is really exciting. This was also done all virtual, by the way, because of the pandemic. They have this metaphor called 5 rocks, which is basically your work plan. So right away, you know what's expected of you. I also saw that there was a huge emphasis on, creating these opportunities for me to showcase my skill sets so that when it came to my midpoint and final evaluation, I was always able to talk about how I've grown as a designer. Because of that NDA, I can't share all my projects, but I can share generally what I did and go more into my passion project. So my main rock was working on redesigning an existing app they had. So I did a lot of product research, user testing, and explaining my design decisions to engineers on the team. I worked directly with a marketing manager to build out 3 to 4 branding identities for a new project they had. I prototyped several physical cardboard package designs, which I ended up doing a participatory design workshop like we did in Design Methods. Each co-op is supposed to do a passion project, so this was my last rock. I was supposed to find a problem and business need for P&G and go through the entire design process, but the only constraint for me was that it had to be in hair care. So I was a little bit freaking out because I didn't know where to start. It seemed like if I were to Google a product concept, P&G was already somehow in that space. I talked to designers and scientists one-to-one to kind of see, where are we headed in this industry? And I wanted to really approach this with an interaction design mindset. So I focused on ways to democratize hair care technology that would predict the type of products best suited for a consumer. Something that's very different from our design coursework is that innovating for a corporation, there's always this question of how does P&G benefit from this? What's the business need? So I focused on this feeling you get when you're in the hair aisle at Target and there's just this overwhelming amount of products on the shelf. It's like, where do I start? How do I know which product is right for me? I was considering, applying augmented reality when I was ideating, and I went down this hole of mobile devices being used to make medical devices more accessible. And so maybe there's something for hair care to kind of jump on. I was exploring pretty deep in different concepts, but my manager kind of pulled me back and said, it's a little bit more believable if you can pitch an idea that can be implemented tomorrow and it's still being kind of innovative. And so I combined Hair Code, their online hair questionnaire, with this new app called Hair Matched. So basically, it allows consumers to create a hair profile They can scan products both in person or search a product through the app, and it will provide product reviews sorted based off people with similar hair like you. And so it hopefully will help consumers shop with more confidence, knowing, people like me had this result with this product. And I still wanted to provide them a more futuristic application of my idea. And so I just pitched at the end, what if we utilize the infrared sensor on our mobile devices to automatically detect someone's hair quality and conditions, so they don't have to take that questionnaire. I feel like I got way better at, communicating my ideas in a concise and clear way to a diverse group of people because, with our design coursework, I'm so used to presenting to you guys, my design friends and professors who understand, what I'm doing and I understand what you guys are doing. And when you're at P&G, you're kind of in like a different universe. You're surrounded by these really smart and talented people who are experts in their field. You have every person you might need for a project. But there's a lot of reporting to people in the corporate world. My manager has a manager who has a manager who reports to another high-up person in leadership position. And I also noticed how typically there's a very specific objective set by upper leadership that is given to a team. So, sometimes ideation looks a little bit different than it does in our coursework. Definitely, if you're into like industrial design, there's a lot of opportunity here. Marketing, branding, interest for business. And as I said, it really seems like P&G will invest in you as a designer. I personally found it quite challenging at times to resonate with the problem spaces in hair care products. They also have these really ambitious 2030 goals that I can really see is on the minds of all the employees who work there. And this was me at the end of my co-op. It really felt like I ran a design marathon. I was telling them it seemed like I really exercised every design muscle in me. It was just a really great experience of seeing the role design plays in a corporate setting. And definitely, if you want to talk hair care or design, I'm here for you. So thank you for listening, and I hope you got something out of it.
Hello, my name is Sarah Hastings, and it's a pleasure to be able to speak at this year's Pecha Kucha. Today I will share a bit about who I am, my internship experiences, how I got them, what work I did, and some reflection I have had since then. Firstly, who am I? Well, I'm a recent grad of the UW ID class of 2020. I loved my time at UW and already miss hanging out in the studio, making things in the shop, and most importantly, spending time with my classmates who became some of my closest friends. I have had the opportunity to intern at 3 companies over the last year and a half, and today I will share a little bit about each experience. After my junior year, I spent 8 months at Progressive International designing kitchen products. After graduating, I interned for a tech startup, Mason, and I'm currently interning at TTI, a company that designs power tools. Okay, great. So you must be wondering, how did I get these jobs? Well, there are 3 key steps. First, you have to make a plan, which for me meant creating an Excel spreadsheet with companies I was interested in both locally and across the country. Next, you need to finish your portfolio. I know it'll always be a work in progress, but I suggest you have something that you feel good enough to share by January. Lastly, search and apply. Look at job boards, reach out to people, and then click the submit button. I started applying for my first internship starting January of my junior year. I applied to probably 25 or more places, and I got a lot of rejections, some interviews, and didn't actually land my job until late April. But it was important for me to start early and apply broadly, because each interview I got better and I was able to refine my portfolio along the way. For Mason, I actually hadn't even started looking for post-grad jobs because I was planning on traveling during the summer. But when that got canceled because of COVID, I was excited when Scott Tsukamaki, a past teacher, reached out to UW Design looking for an ID intern for a startup company that he had recently joined. So it's important to work hard in school because one day your teacher could be your boss. And then lastly for TTI, I actually applied to TTI before Mason, and I'd been in contact with them since January for a fall internship, and I landed that job in August. Now I'll share some highlights from each internship experience. First off, Progressive. It's a medium-sized company located in Kent, Washington. I was one of 6 designers and the only intern at the company. I was able to stay on with Progressive throughout the fall by using this internship as a design elective, which was a great opportunity. Working at Progressive was a lot of fun. I modified existing products like the oil sprayer trigger. I was a sole designer on several projects of my own, like a collapsible taco holder, and I also supported other designers by doing sketching and renderings. Being in person for this internship was great. They had every single kitchen product you could ever imagine. It was so fun to look through their library of products and to be able to test and experiment in the shop. Being able to stay on with Progressive longer allowed me to get to know the team better and develop relationships. Mason is a startup that helps companies build smart mobile products. They were founded in 2011, and I had the privilege of being their first ID intern. The company has roughly 40 people right now, and they're quickly growing. It was a fully remote internship, but I was able to meet up with my boss and mentor, Scott, several times throughout the summer. Being remote is a bit more challenging because it's harder to get to know people and learn from the surrounding environment. But I must say Mason did a great job of including me and making the internship interactive and engaging. I was able to join in on meetings, virtually meet most of the team, and their weekly company meetings kept us updated on what was going on. So Mason creates products for its 3 verticals, which are government, healthcare, and payments. I was tasked to choose a vertical and create a new smart product within that space. I chose to focus on healthcare, seeking to develop a smart solution for older adults to age in place. It was pretty similar to a school project in that I was able to go through the whole design process during my 11 weeks at Mason. I'll now touch on some of the highlights of that project. I chose to focus on dehydration, a problem that plagues many older adults and leads to more serious health problems. The first 5 weeks, I did research and concept development. I spoke with nurses and caregivers to find a solution for elderly to build healthy habits around hydration. After researching and concepting, I chose to move forward and develop a smart hydration hub that is the wearable would remind people to stay hydrated and passively track their hydration, and the hub would connect and display the information in a clear and actionable way. The second half of the internship, I developed the solution. I did many iterations of the design of the hub, got feedback from the design team along the way. I did some rough prototyping at home to get a sense of the scale and form. You don't need a full shop to be able to prototype. Low-fidelity mock-ups are a quick and easy way to get a sense of what the product will look like in the real world. At the end of my internship, I got the opportunity to present my project to the whole company and get feedback, which was rewarding and encouraging. Okay, lastly, where I am now. TTI, which is the parent company for brands like Ryobi, Hart, and Milwaukee Tools. It's a big company. Its design team is over 90 people. They have 7 ID interns year-round, and you're able to stay as an intern for up to a year unless you get hired on full-time beforehand. It's located in Anderson, South Carolina. They have a beautiful new building, their innovation center. But since we're remote right now, I've only been there a couple times. But the picture on the right shows flags from where all the interns are from. So it's cool to be part of such a well-established program that brings people from all around the country. TTI provides apartments for its interns, which makes moving across the country a lot easier. And I also live with another intern, so thankfully I'm not alone. Each intern is placed on a team. I got placed on the outdoor team, which means I get to work on cool products like this riding lawnmower. These are definitely the most complex products I've worked on, with CAD files that have hundreds of parts. When working on such a complex product, I have a much smaller role, such as designing the steering wheel and the grass chute. But it's cool to be able to contribute to such a complex and exciting new product. Now on to some final thoughts. When it comes to finding a job, start early. Start your portfolio now. You don't want it to be able to hold you back from being able to apply for a job. Also invest in relationships and make sure you always follow up with people. When you get a job, here are 3 things that I would do. Always offer to help and get yourself involved in more projects. Don't be afraid to ask questions. People want you to ask questions, and they will know you care if you do. And last, enjoy being an intern. You get to be part of a company in a lower stakes role and get to learn about a whole new industry. I know I covered a lot very quickly, so feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I would love to be able to share more about a particular experience and offer any advice. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rachel Fazio. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm a VCD senior. And I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement, acknowledging the land that we are standing on in Seattle specifically is the land of the Coast Salish and Duwamish people. We would like to honor with gratitude the land itself and the tribes past and present whose land we are on and whose land we have stolen. This acknowledgement also does not take place for relationships with Indigenous people and for reparations towards Indigenous communities, but is a first step to honor the land that we're standing on today. This is my presentation on why I decided to not get an internship this past summer and how I still don't know what I'm doing with my life and how that's also okay. This is going to be really non-traditional, as you can definitely tell. I'd first like to start with acknowledging that I still haven't finished my portfolio, and that's totally fine because I kind of realized that maybe that's not what I want to do and maybe that's not in the plan for me right now. And that's chill with me. I applied to one internship and then didn't get it and then was actually I don't think that I wanted to get it. I think I was just doing it because I felt obligated to, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I'd rather do something purposeful. And I was realizing that when I was avoiding all of these responsibilities, that the one thing that was really keeping me grounded was my art, and really taking my side hustle to the next level and taking it to making shirts and making these puffy paint weird things and really getting deep in there into my inner child and the bright colors that I always incessantly use, and just really trying to brand myself, which feels really weird still, but it's been so much fun and such a great process, and loving myself and really treating design as as I want to do it, and making design for myself, which has been really cool. I also have been nannying for the past couple of years and still am now, and this is something that I would love to give a whole presentation about, because it's something that has been so great for my mental health and so great for my process of healing and learning more about myself, which has been really cool. I highly recommend that if you have the financial means to, or the mental means to, doing things that might put you in the financial situation that you might be kind of uncomfortable with, but that will really help your mental health, is always the better decision in my experience. This next part, I would like to talk about, I wouldn't necessarily call it activism work because that word is still colonized, but basically I would like to speak more towards the work that I did this summer and how hopefully white and non-Black folks can gain something out of it, and hopefully I can give y'all tips for entering the activism sphere and what I gained from that experience and have been for the past probably 5 years. Something that I would suggest to every designer is always working for free if you have the means to. I think if you haven't already, which I'm sure y'all already have, but integrating into my practice specifically the act of giving and the act of treating design as a gift to another person has been a really beneficial practice into showing myself how I am valued, and to decentering myself in that narrative as well. And always within activism spaces, I urge you to take the initiative, especially when that means taking work off of someone else's back, because that is so often the case in these spaces, is that someone is being overloaded, and it's the nature of activism as a whole entire entity. But if you're working in a space specifically, which we do in design literally all the time, where the target is to help folks of the community that you're not a part of, my tips for this, which I hope you gain something from it. If you don't, tune it out. I don't care. Take what you want, throw away what you don't want. But I would like to say that you're not designing for these folks. You are designing with them, and it should, in my opinion, always be like that. because you will miss stuff, and that's the whole part of the process, is that you're going to miss stuff if you're not a part of this group, and making sure that this community is being properly represented, and specifically not working for racial inequity. I'm sorry for the typo. Racial inequity organizations that have no BIPOC folks in them is ridiculous, and you're not fighting for that. Being conscious every second, especially if you're white or non-black, especially if you're able-bodied, especially if you're cis, especially if you are heterosexual, being conscious of the amount of space that you're taking up, and being conscious of the amount of space that you take up, and how that affects negatively others' abilities to take up space, and how if you're in an activism space, and if you're in a space in which you truly want to have everyone be heard, everyone should feel heard, and you should be constantly advocating for everyone to feel heard. Being mindful in general of your capacity and the capacity of others, especially in activism spaces. I believe that white folks should be extending their capacity till the fucking end. I'm sorry for cussing. Till the end, to really be fighting for this, because it is our job to be undoing this. And also keeping central to the practice as well, keeping other people safe, whether it means mentally or physically, and whether it means to really make sure that someone feels heard, and to really make sure that you're doing everything in your power to help the folks around you without with helping them with what they need and not helping them with what you think they need, kind of thing. Yeah, basically really rambly, but thank y'all for listening, and I hope this sort of helps the folks that are being oh my god, I don't want to get an internship, or I don't even know how to do this, I don't even know how to start the process. I'm here for y'all, and thank you for listening. Bye.
Hi guys, I'm Michael, and today I'll be talking about my summer designing at Oculus. So a little bit about me. I'm a senior in interaction design. I was an AR/VR product design intern at Facebook on the social experiences team. And going into the summer, I didn't have a ton of formal experience. Most of my projects were in startups or student orgs or just in school. So my recruitment began around this time last year. I attended a visual design workshop with two Facebook product designers as well as a recruiter. At the end of the event, I had some really awkward networking with the recruiter. I asked some really dumb questions, but fortunately I was able to get his contact information, and we were able to continue the conversation afterwards. So a few weeks later, I had gotten my portfolio together, I submitted my online application, and I reached out, and he was able to move me forward with the process. So for interviews, I did a phone screening. I also did a portfolio review and an app critique, and those are both with product designers. I actually didn't get the initial position I was interviewing for, but they referred me to a different product design manager, and he ended up becoming my actual manager during the internship. These were two of the projects I showed during the portfolio reviews. Having gone through the internship and reflecting back on those skills, I think this is what stood out from those projects. So on the left, it was an AR project. I think it showed my understanding of the technology and kind of the different opportunities it could create, as well as interaction design skills, thinking about end-to-end user flows. On the right, it was a pretty difficult problem space for that project, so I think it showed some of my product thinking as well as just general visual design. Fortunately, I got the offer, and I was placed on the Oculus product. So even within Oculus, there's a ton of different things you could be working on. I think one of the great things they did was the way they did team matching. So they just send out a form, and you write out strengths, weaknesses, things you're interested in working on, and skills you want to improve during the internship. And with that, they'll try to find a good fit for you. And this was the product design team I ended up working on. Again, the social experiences team. This was only part of the total amount of people I worked with. I also worked with engineers, PMs, content strategists, and UX researchers. And the goal of our team was to drive meaningful connections in virtual reality. In other words, we were trying to help users find, chat, and play with others in VR. Unfortunately, my core project is under NDA, but I can talk about a secondary project. Out of 12 weeks, I worked on this for maybe 3 or 4. So it involved messenger integration as well as giving users new tools to connect with others. So VR is definitely known for these 3D immersive environments. On the left, for example, fighting robots in a big city, or exploring the Arctic basically from your house. But there's a lot of design that actually goes into supplementing those experiences. So for example, an app store doesn't need to be this crazy 3D immersive experience. It can be much more straightforward. And one of the ways my team was trying to supplement those experiences was socially. So by helping people connect with others, they can just have much more engaging and much more fun VR experiences. So going back to the example, instead of fighting robots by yourself, you're working with a team of people, you're collaborating and taking on even more difficult levels. Or instead of exploring the Arctic, you're with a team of people and you're sharing these experiences as you discover them. This was another project that we worked on, so the Messenger integration. Even though Messenger is this established product, integrating it, we did have to think about it differently, kind of what are the differences in our use cases, how should we adapt this to Oculus and to VR. So for the designs, it is quite similar to 2D design like mobile or web. It's essentially a flat design, but it's in 3-dimensional space. So because of that, it's a lot more about thinking about depth of field and interactions, as well as like the actual physical interactions that a person is making. And I'll end with just some highlights from the overall internship. So dog fooding was a really cool thing we did. It basically means testing out like beta versions or early prototypes of different projects. So we just get in these video chats and be in our headsets. But it was really cool to see what else around the organization is being worked on. And that could be like mixed reality or new productivity tools or really anything. And throughout the internship, a lot of these projects very much felt 0 to 1. So in VR, I think there's just so many opportunities that haven't been explored yet. It's really an emerging space. And because of that, there's a ton of questions, there's a ton of unknowns about how these products should be built. And this ambiguity, I think, is just a really cool place to work in as a product designer. And finally, it was a very design-driven culture. I was a little bit worried about, possibly a disconnect between me and engineers, but I definitely didn't have this experience. Design was super valued at the company, and you definitely do have a lot of weight in terms of how these products are built. And that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions or just want to chat, feel free to reach out and I'd be happy to help. Thanks.
Hello everyone, my name is Annie and I'm currently a senior in the IXD program. I'm going to be talking about my summer internship at Amazon, from the application process to my 12 weeks of working and my takeaways. I actually applied to Amazon in November of 2019 online and got a response way later in February of 2020. I forgot that I even applied. So I had applied to other internships through LinkedIn, cold emailing. It just so happened that I got a response on my online application for Amazon. So afterwards, I had a portfolio review and behavior interview that were about an hour each. For the interview, I presented 2 solo projects, and then I was asked to present another group project. After the group project, I was asked to go in brief detail on a project that I had the most challenges with. So my advice is to be prepared to present multiple projects on your portfolio, and also really emphasize your role on the project and have a strong rationale for your design decisions. The behavior interview was pretty hard, I thought, and I felt that the questions were phrased in a way where they assumed you already had professional experience, which is hard, especially if you are a student. So my advice is to get involved in organizations and do projects outside of school. You never know when it will be its time to shine. And if you want to ace an interview at Amazon, definitely embed the leadership principles to your answers. These leadership principles set the tone for Amazonian culture, and you would be seeing these throughout your time working there. I would say the most important principles to me are bias for action, ownership, and customer obsession. Throughout my internship, I really had to take initiative, and it wasn't enough to just be there. So I got my acceptance letter. I'm crying, jumping for joy, and I finally got an internship. I was going to Sunnyvale, California, and of course, the universe said no. You are going to stay in your house for 12 weeks instead. So we know how the story goes. The internship becomes remote. And a day prior to my day 1, I had to set up my workstation with my monitor and laptop. And remote work is weird because you don't get to see people. I was staring at a blank screen until 10 a.m. when my manager finally called for our first one-on-one. So I was a UX design intern on the Alexa research and design team. Basically, teams send us projects and we prioritize them and choose which ones to work on or not. In a typical week, Tuesdays we would go over project status. We would also have one-on-ones with my manager and mentor to discuss projects, roadblocks, or anything else I wanted. Thursdays were put aside for formal project reviews. And aside from work-related meetings, we would have intern-focused or design-focused meetings. So my manager, who is also a designer, hosts a broadcast called 5 Things, where designers can create presentations on 5 things that inspire them in design, technology, or art. The purpose of this was to start off our Mondays with inspiration and new perspectives. So I really enjoyed this part about my Mondays, and I even presented my own 5 things to the design community. The projects I worked on were all within the realm of Alexa, which is huge. But for my main project, I was working with care services. So this is Alexa Care Hub. Not exactly what I worked on, but we share a similar space. Basically, this new feature will allow, for example, adults to connect with their older parents through Alexa. Alexa monitors the activity of the older adult and then reports it to the caregiver or adult on the other end. This Care Hub is not yet released, but it's up on Amazon's website if you are curious. So I entered the project at the beginning research stages. So my job was to do secondary research in the space as well as customer research. Eventually, I conducted unmoderated interviews on 33 participants through user testing. I also created a screener and questionnaire and would watch the participants answer. So eventually what came out of this was a research report and an interview highlight reel. So along with that report, I also made a family of 7 personas. I spent many weeks gathering data and research, so the personas were data-driven and also pulled from the interviews. I want to also mention that at places like Amazon, you have to be extremely specific about data. So using words like a few is not enough. You really have to specify, for example, like 4 out of 10, which can be annoying sometimes if you're not used to it. So another project I worked on was the human interface guideline for a category of products, which included an array of items. Having a human interface guideline is a way to help designers, engineers, and PMs unify products and serve consistent experiences. So what it entails is a North Star vision, principles, and design patterns. So I can't show you what I worked on, but this is an example from Alexa Auto. So working on this project, I had to write and think a lot. I had to envision a future for these set of products and create design guardrails and patterns for people who will eventually be using the guide. I really had to get out of my comfort zone and interview stakeholders on where they thought the inconsistencies currently lie in Alexa products. So if you have seen Apple's guidelines, I think they were pretty well done and also a good example of human interface guideline. So for this project, I had to lead interviews and be really hands-on in the writing. So my manager really treated me as a full-timer and gave me roles where she thought I could grow in. So I mentioned writing a lot, and that's because Amazon has a strong writing culture. 2-pagers and 6-pagers are a regular occurrence. So even if you have everything in a PowerPoint, you would still be asked to write a detailed document. In the beginning, I was intimidated, but I had the guidance from my manager, and trust me, everyone is working on their writing skill, even those with years of experience. So one thing I realized was how unnecessary it was to worry about prestige. This is me from my graphic design internship last year at King County. I remember feeling not good enough because people around me got big tech internships, but I look back at King County and I really felt a sense of community there that I did not feel at Amazon. People at Amazon are really busy and the remote work doesn't help. But at King County, I had a lot of freedom, but that meant I was cruising. While at Amazon, I was pushed out of my comfort zone. And honestly, sometimes it felt too much, but from that, I grew a lot as a designer. It was real tough work, but what excites me about Amazon is the opportunity to work in a field such as voice design and create unique products. I hope my experiences can be helpful for you, and just remember that it all works out at the end. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Lulu McRoberts and I am a recent graduate of UW's ID program and a full-time user experience designer for Wybotic. Wybotic is a tech startup that provides wireless charging options for all sorts of different kinds of industrial robots, ranging from space rovers to underwater drones. As the only designer at the company, I wear a lot of different hats. So far, I've done graphic design and marketing. I do video production for tutorial videos and build-outs for third parties. I also turn digital products that look like this into stuff that looks like this. And my latest and biggest project is to be conducting a UX research campaign with customers who will be participating in a beta test of a new software we're going to be rolling out. UX research is kind of my bread and butter, and so I'm really excited to be a part of this one. However, everyone's journey about how they got their job will be totally different from how you get your job. When I was asked to speak at Pecha Kucha, I thought about a presentation that would be the most helpful for you guys. So I created the 9 principles for getting a design job, even in a pandemic. I was trying to get to 10 to make a Dieter Rams joke, but I guess you just can't force some things. So, firstly, get to know yourself. The first one is absolutely the hardest and most time-consuming one. What I suggest for you is to have a passion project outside of school, whether it's a solo mission, a group project with friends, or a club, shout out to Hyperloop. Find what topics interest you and then dig deeper into what those skills are that you're learning that make you the most excited. Secondly, learn how to ask for things. This may sound really simple, but it's actually a skill that you need to learn. This TED Talk totally changed my life. In fact, pause this video right now, open up a new tab and watch this video. It will help you not only get the confidence to ask, but also help you ask for things effectively, which is just as important. Thirdly, as the wise Bill Buxton says, if you want to get hit by a car, stand in the road. What he means to say by this is show up. And luckily for you, you are living in the midst of a pandemic, which means that you can utilize LinkedIn to attend any design event around the world for practically free. Additionally, use your current connections on LinkedIn for introductions to other people. This is how most everyone gets a job these days, not through cold applying. So 1, show up to events, and 2, utilize connections to make more meaningful connections with other people. Fourthly, finding a mentor really comes from a combination of 2 things I've already mentioned: asking for things and showing up. When you think you've found a possible mentor, help them help you by telling them what you want out of design. Before you talk about your portfolios and nitty-gritty design stuff, talk about yourself and what you want. They may know about a design track that you don't even know exists. Also, a portfolio review is just a portfolio review. Mentorship really comes from keeping in touch and cultivating a relationship. Send your mentor a little life update or questions and concerns you have. Also, mentorship can come in the form of books. I reference the book on the left pretty much every day. In fact, I have it right here. And so I encourage you to buy them all, read them front to cover, and then you'll see your design thinking elevate. Fifthly, this is something that was never taught in design school, yet it's really important for self-discovery. When companies hire people, they don't just employ carbon copies of skill. They notice weaknesses in the breadth of their company, and they hire people to fill that gap. The same should be with design partners in school. For example, I'm really great at project management, design research, and storytelling. I'm absolute bollocks at sketching and aesthetic design for aesthetic's sake. My partner and great friend, Christine, is an absolute god in visual design, and she's one of the best visual designers I've ever seen, period. And together we created a really strong project because we covered all of our bases, each one covering for the other. Sixthly, all great design has great storytelling. Find a storytelling method in your medium of choice and get good at it. That means if you're really great at telling stories through physical prototyping, do that. Sketching, great. Shitty stick figure drawings, do it. What matters is that the story is directed, concise, and compelling. Seventh, always have a plan for what you want to do as a designer, and in your personal life too. Often when you land an internship, you get to your job and expect that someone has a project lined up for you. But often the reality is that you get there and the company asks what you have planned for them. In fact, Steve Jobs made a point that it's good for companies to ask their employees about what their plans are. So take the initiative. It's better to ask for forgiveness than it is for permission. Rejection is totally normal. It literally happens to every single human on this planet. I'm here to tell you that it is okay to not get an internship over the summer, and it is okay to not have a job after you graduate. You could follow all of these principles religiously and still not get a job. Life is totally weird, and it doesn't have to do with how skilled or how good of a person you are. It's just strange. I like to think of a job search as a matter of when, not if, so don't lose heart. And lastly, if you don't pay attention to anything else in this presentation, pay attention to this one. Design is hard. It builds you up and it breaks you down. There are days when you feel like you shouldn't be a designer at all. I've definitely had my fair share of those days. Shout out to sketching class with On. But keep going. I promise you'll find your groove if you keep working on what makes your craft unique to you. Thank you for watching. Again, my name is Lulu McRoberts, and feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Facebook if you'd like to talk more.
Hi, I'm Katie Cowan. I'm a senior in VCD, and this past summer I interned for UW Press, and I did a bit of freelance. I'm currently still interning with UW Press. They offer a publication design internship every single year through our department, so if you're interested, definitely look out for that, and feel free to reach out to me with any questions. And so in looking and applying, I wanted something full-time, something I was interested in. I wanted to gain experience, and I wanted something for my portfolio. But I really was kind of just randomly applying to things on LinkedIn. I didn't really know how to search, and I really wanted a publication design internship, but I couldn't find much out there at all. And then UW Press came along, and it was a publication design internship, but it wasn't full-time. But because it was something that I was so interested in, that number one went right out the window. And I got really excited about this opportunity. And then, so going in to the interview and portfolio review, I really wanted just to show how passionate I was. So I chose to show 2 publication layout projects that I had done, one through class and then one through a club. And I wanted to also show some process. So I showed an interaction design project. And I got the job, but working remotely is hard. We all know this. Communication is really difficult when most everything is over email. We've all experienced this through class with Zoom just not being the best. I think just when you don't understand something, don't be afraid to ask. Don't feel like it's too little. Just ask. So this is what a day looks like. A lot of emails. And also just working on some mechanicals, which is that book cover that's laid out flat, working on some image edits. I can have anywhere from 1 to 5 projects at a time. It really just fluctuates. So editing images, it's not too complicated. It's really just converting things to grayscale and removing a lot of blemishes and making sure that it's okay to go in a book and be printed. A lot of our images are historical. So it's more about the content than how perfect they might look. And so I also edit some mechanicals. So this is taking that book jacket and converting it into a paperback cover, moving all that text around so it fits in the smaller reprint version, and making sure that every little detail is correct and that it's ready to go. I also receive book covers that other people have designed, and then I create an entire mechanical based off of that. So that's the spine and the back cover. It's making sure all of that text is correct and all the hierarchy is correct and readable, and also incorporating some of those little details. So I've actually got to create 2 book covers since I've been at UW Press. The first one being The Empress in the Pepper Chamber. It's a really exciting thing to be able to create something and put it out into the world. And I think with every design process, we start with research, but what's nice is that all the research is kind of given to you. So I read a 13-page introduction in this case, and then look at the form that the author sent that has a description of what they would expect the book visually to look like. And this author was also great in that they sent some images that they really liked and felt represented the tone of the book. So that filled in some of these images, but I also did quite a bit of image research, which was really interesting. It was really hard though, because this was such a kind of an ancient topic to find accurate images, and we ended up actually going with something that was not from the time period, but the author did send it over, so it was okay. So this was my first round of design iteration with all these covers. After this, I met with the lead designer, and we reviewed all of them and did a little bit of critique, and then I came back with a second round of iteration on these, and these were shown to the author and a bunch of other people, and the one on the left was chosen. I would have preferred the one on the right, but sometimes these things kind of get out of your hand, which I guess is just what's different about work rather than school. So although in school we learn so much about type design and hierarchy, I think when you have this constant exercise of every single day moving things around and creating mechanicals like those, you do just learn so much more, and you just get a greater attention to detail. So piggybacking off of that, you really have to like playing with type. If you don't like playing with type, then you're probably not going to enjoy sort of the day-to-day of this job, and that's going to make things a lot harder. I would also suggest liking publication design. So I also did a bit of freelance with the design department, and I also created a logo for a different company, but they're still getting all their contracts, so I can't show that. I just did a little bit of animation. It was nice to do some projects on the side and get a taste for what freelance could look like. So expectations, I would say, for freelance is be adaptable because you're working so directly with a client. Keep up with deadlines, have effective communication, and have realistic expectations for what you think you can do in the time frame that you're given. And then outside of that, it was really nice to be able to only work 15 hours a week and only have a little bit of freelance and get to do some extra projects that were completely uncritiqued and undesign related. It was really, really liberating. I would really suggest it. So in the end, I would just do something that you're passionate about, because if you're not passionate about it, you're going to spend a lot of time looking at a clock and seeing when things are going to be done.
Hi everyone, I'm Verly Chen, a senior in interaction design, and this summer I interned for a company called Quip. Quip is a productivity tool software startup that was recently acquired by Salesforce, so it's part of that larger conglomerate now. And to give you an idea about what the product is like, it's essentially like Google Docs, Sheets, and Slides combined into one program. My journey to Quip started when I received an email from Karen about an opportunity to talk to Drew Hamlin, who is a alumni of the VCD program. So I had a short interview with Drew in person, and then later on I was moved on to the next steps and had a couple other interviews with other people on the design team and getting the offer in January. I did wait a little bit before accepting the offer, mainly because I was also considering a few other companies, and thankfully Quip was very lenient on the deadline in which I had to accept my offer, so I did take my time a little bit and eventually accepted my offer late March. Originally, the internship would have taken place in San Francisco, but given the situation of the pandemic, it was remote. So the way the team handled this was to host meetings virtually through Discord, where the design team had a channel called Woke Culture. In this channel, we host design crit as well as happy hours, and it's also a space where you can say anything and bond with your coworkers. Previous to Discord, we also used Slack for a little bit, and we used Google Meet to meet with people outside of the design team. My typical weekly schedule consists of critique twice a week, and how this works is we get on the meeting and we share our screen and essentially share any progress you might have on your project. It's very, very casual, and then you get some feedback that you can consider moving forward. Additionally, I have meetings relevant to my project with PMs and engineers. I'd say I have around 4 of these a week, but it's really variable depending on what you're working on and where you're at in the process at the time. I also have one-on-one meetings with my manager and my mentor. I like to schedule additional ones with other people at work and other designers just to learn a little bit more about them and what they're up to and talk about life in general. Lastly, I already mentioned this a little bit earlier, but we like to have a social thing every week. So something like a happy hour or a sip, or if we just want to play video games together. I worked on a variety of different projects during the span of my internship, from data logging stuff all the way to COVID data visualization applications. But for the sake of time, I'm going to be mostly talking about my efforts improving the discoverability of Salesforce and Quip integrations. So this is the Quip document editor, and as you can tell, it looks very similar to a lot of other word processors out there. So let's take a closer look at the toolbar and what the toolbar consists of. As you can see, there's a Salesforce icon in here with a few actions below it, but there are a few issues with this. There's actually a lot more Salesforce integrated functionalities that are hidden within other aspects of the UI. For example, you can associate records in Salesforce through the share button. So a lot of this functionality is essential, but undiscoverable. Additionally, the Salesforce actions within the toolbar don't actually relate to editing the document itself, so they don't really belong in this area of the UI either. After doing a variety of explorations over the span of a few weeks and also checking in at critique and receiving feedback for my work, I decided on a lightweight situation that was essentially a consolidated drop down in a different area of the top level UI that consists of all of the Salesforce actions you may need. This seemingly simple design change actually increased Salesforce action engagement by 942%, along with 64% increase in Salesforce Live App inserters, a 43% increase in successfully submitting activity logs, and a 44% increase in opening associated records. So overall, you could say that this feature was quite successful. Some of my learnings I took away from my internship was to 1. Trust your intuition even as a young designer. It's really easy, especially as someone without a lot of industry experience, to lose confidence in your own ability to design and thus forget to advocate for the solutions you believe in. It's great to be open-minded to other ideas, but it would be a shame to think that yours are not valuable. If you have a great idea that you believe in, work your hardest to advocate for your idea and storytell it in a way where your coworkers can see your perspective. Secondly, I think it's important to be a good citizen. And what I mean by this is that it's beneficial for the company, your coworkers, and yourself to be generally proactive. Participate and offer your full attention in meetings that may not necessarily apply directly to what you're working on at the moment. If there's a bug or a problem you notice about the application, log it or at least bring it up to someone that can help fix it. Be a good sport and a part of the community. And doing this by generally having a good attitude like this, everyone will be happier and it will also improve your work experience. Lastly, I realized that work is not life. Before, I used to prioritize work above everything else and spend long nights outside of normal working hours to try to get everything done in one go. But after doing this a few too many times, I realized that the work is always going to be there. It's not worth sacrificing your sanity and health for the sake of getting just a little bit more done. I actually believe that's a large reason why I appreciated working at Quip so much, because everyone shared the same sentiment as me and was once destroyed from doing too much work. I think this general, I'm with you, I've also been there, attitude holds a lot of wisdom and value and also cultivates this culture of respect and balance. Lastly, I just want to say thank you to the Quip design team for being an incredible, supportive, and friendly community. Some of my favorite moments from the internship came from simply the random one-on-one meetings I scheduled and the perspective I gained from talking to the designers here. I can say with reassurance that these are some of the most welcoming and genuine people I've met. Although this internship was virtual, I look forward to meeting everyone in person sometime in the near future. Thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Eric Nakasa and I am currently a furniture design intern at Juve in New York City. Before we get into the work or the company, I want to give some background into how I got here. I graduated from the University of Washington's Industrial Design program in June this year and ended up moving across the country to be with my partner and our family in Furlong, Pennsylvania. Once there, I began freelancing for some startups, worked on personal projects, and applied to several jobs in the New York City metropolitan area. On the advice of my partner's parents, I set up a LinkedIn account and focused my job search there. After about 2 months, a job opening popped up to be a furniture designer at Juve, New York, a French atelier specializing in custom upholstery and drapery work. I applied through LinkedIn and reached out to the recruiter. Just after a couple days, the recruiter reached out to me to set up a phone interview. I had a great first conversation with Taylor, who really appreciated my enthusiasm and passion for furniture design. After passing the first interview, he assigned me a test of modeling and creating shop drawings of a Jean Royer armchair. Although renderings weren't required, I included two just to showcase my skills a little more. I received great feedback on my test and scheduled a second interview, this time over a video call. We dove deeper into my work experience and qualifications in this round, and this is when I began to realize I may not have the industry experience they were looking for. Despite feeling a little discouraged, we concluded the interview on a great note. Because throughout our conversations, we knew we both shared great passion for furniture design, and we felt that our personalities worked well together. Taylor followed up with me a week later with hopeful news. Although I didn't have enough experience to fill the role I applied for, he wanted to give me a chance to gain that experience. He had a discussion with the team and created a full-time paid internship opportunity just for me. I quickly accepted the offer, figured out my housing, and moved to New York City in mid-August with my partner. I had 2 weeks to settle in before I began my internship on September 1st. The company was founded by Charles Jouff in 1987. Headquartered in Lyon, France, Jouff opened its current New York City workroom in 2017. They develop high-end custom furniture and drapery work for top interior designers and private clients around the world. Jouff, New York is located in Long Island City, just a half-hour subway commute from the Yorkville neighborhood of Manhattan where I live. I was one of 3 new hires, Steve being the new furniture designer and Jinx being the new project manager. We all bonded quickly within the first week, training and shadowing with Taylor and a number of highly skilled artisans. Jouff is of course implementing COVID safety measures in the workplace. We continue to wear masks and submit a checklist each morning in case of a need for contact tracing. One of the main challenges of this internship was having to learn so much so quickly. The team was in a period of transition, with the former lead designer leaving the company to operate his own design studio. Jouff had accumulated a backlog of work for us to tackle within the first few weeks. With the way the project timelines are set up, I haven't been able to work on a complete project from start to finish quite yet. Instead, I've worked on multiple projects at different stages of the development process. Although I had some technical barriers pop up along the way, the team at Jouff was incredibly helpful and available to answer any of my questions. Soon enough, I was comfortable working on models and shop drawings on my own. I participate in weekly team meetings and join client calls to discuss ongoing projects. Part of my task as a furniture design intern is integrating 3D printing and rendering to Jouff's current development process. Although these services are still in its inception at Jouff, the couple of prints and renderings I've produced for select clients have proven to be successful and highly desired. In addition to my daily work, I've been lucky enough to go venture outside the studio to meet vendors and observe on-site installations. Jouff really values transparency and encourages strong collaboration between the different departments. I've been able to meet and observe the work of so many different people, giving me a greater appreciation and understanding of the impact we each make within the company. In particular, I've gotten to know Juan, the in-house carpenter, pretty well. He's also a recent hire who works directly off of our shop drawings to fabricate custom frames and pieces. The team has been very supportive of my personal projects as well. I've been working with Juan for the past 2 weeks to realize my own coffee table design, applying the same modeling and shop drawing techniques I use for client work. Aside from the work that we do, I really appreciate the diversity of the team at Jouff. We are made up of people of different backgrounds, all connected through our shared understanding and appreciation for each other's cultures. The diversity of the company helps us gain unique perspectives and nurtures our relationship with one another. My time in New York City has been very transformative and eye-opening as a young designer. There is no doubt that the city has so much to offer people pursuing creative fields. With an abundance of design studios, expert craftsmen, galleries, and design events, I feel incredibly fortunate to be here at this point in my life. Thanks for listening to my Pecha Kucha, and please feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to answer any of your questions.